After so long, yesterday was finally the day that I got to see Gladiator 2 directed by Ridley Scott, the director from the first movie, so it only seemed right. I have a lot to cover on the movie, but before that, welcome back or welcome to the channel if you're new here. If you like my content and you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel, it helps a lot. With that being said, let's finally talk about Gladiator 2. There will be some spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, like this video, go watch it, and then come back later. The first thing I want to talk about is the stacked cast. Some movies nowadays tend to have an insane cast, but most of the cast only really play cameo roles and don't fit into the overall story. But for Gladiator 2, I would say it worked. It wasn't too many characters, but the characters that were there were amazing. After all, quality over quantity every single time. We pretty much knew that Connie Nielsen was going to return as Lucilia, considering she didn't die in the first movie. I think she was better in this movie than the previous. I don't remember a whole lot from her in the first movie, but she plays a really good mom in the second one. Filled with regret after having to send her son Lucius away after Maximus died, only for him to return to the Colosseum as a slave and then a gladiator, to fight where his father fought and potentially take his last breath where his father took his. Connie Nielsen really has a motherly aura and shows that motherly love, filled with regret but also trying to make amends with her long lost son before it's too late. I don't think you could do that if you don't have kids yourself, because it didn't just feel like acting, it felt incredibly authentic. And despite her not fully being able to reunite with her son because she died at the hands of the next character we will talk about, I was still incredibly satisfied with her performance. I think in the coming years, unless she gets nominated for an Oscar, many people unfortunately overlook her performance in this movie, and they really shouldn't. I feel like she was the heart and soul of the entire movie, and I really wanted to give her her flowers and like hats off to Connie Nielsen because she truly deserves it. The main villain of the movie was someone I didn't expect from the start, and that is Denzel Washington's character, Macrinus. Macrinus is the guy that buys Hanu or Lucius as a gladiator for himself after witnessing him bite an ape. At the start, I thought Macrinus was going to play a fatherly mentor figure in Lucius' life, but the more the movie progressed, the more I realized he has a lot of ambition and could potentially be the big bad of it all. I first realized that when he won the first wager, but he didn't really care about the money and instead just wanted to double it over and over and over until he eventually owned the house of the person he was betting against, which meant that now that guy had to be loyal to Macrinus. Denzel Washington plays a really conniving character who doesn't care if he has to get his hands dirty in order to get what he truly desires, which is being Emperor of Rome. I haven't seen that much of Denzel's acting resume, but I feel like this is my sign to start doing that. I want to talk about one last character in depth, so to say, and that is of course the main character, Lucius or Hanu, played by none other than Paul Mescal. Paul Mescal is quickly becoming one of my favorite actors working today. I have only seen him act in Aftersun before this, but his performance was so good in Aftersun and really put him on the map for me, like that. But to give you an idea on how good Paul Mescal actually is, you have to know who he allegedly beat to acquire the role of Lucius. Among the names on who he allegedly beat are Timothy Chalamet, Austin Butler, Richard Madden, and Miles Teller. He beat them all to get this role, and it was so worth it because, to be completely honest, I really can't see someone else play Lucius apart from Paul Mescal. This might be a hot take, but I would go as far to say as he had the standout performance of the entire movie. He didn't copy Russell Crowe's portrayal of Maximus into his portrayal of Lucius, which I had a slight worry about, but instead he made it his own, and that is probably why I will think of Lucius as one of those good characters that we've had in recent times. I really liked how everything was ripped away from him, and that he wasn't his father, and that he wasn't going to try to be his father. He wasn't a general, he was just a soldier, and it really felt like he stepped up because nobody else did. Paul Mescal did a fantastic job, and it would surprise me if it didn't get an Oscar nomination. The movie also has Pedro Pascal, Joseph Quinn, Fred Heschinger, Alexander Karim, and many other characters, and they were all really good, but I wanted to put the spotlight on the other characters. One thing I wish we would have seen more of was deaths to the emperors, because the movie didn't really make me care to hate or love the emperors, which was kind of unfortunate, but it is what it is. It would have been a much worse thing if the emperors were going to be the big villains of the movie, but they weren't. The one thing I will take away from this movie is that it felt like a sequel to one of the greatest movies of all time, while also being its own entity. I watched it with my friend who hadn't seen the original movie, but he liked it and understood it. He understood and liked it obviously much more when I explained the lore of the first movie. But the movie felt like Gladiator. Ridley Scott and the entire crew really made it feel like we hadn't left the Roman Empire to begin with. Ridley Scott's love and passion for the Roman Empire was really shown here. Not that we didn't already know of it, but it was great that we could still see it in the movie. To conclude, I I think this movie is one of the better movies that have been released this year. It had a feel-good ending, a really good final fight, and an overall good story. It did feel like the movie was a tiny bit rushed, and I would have appreciated it having like 15 minutes more. But it's not a big deal. I still love this movie. I don't think it's better than the first movie, but the first movie is so iconic and it's one of my favorite movies of all time. But this is a really, really good sequel. Thank you for watching. I think I'm done. Goodbye.